Cool. This is who it is. This is the star we've been waiting for. I met Nicolette not too long ago online, like you do, recommended to have a conversation with her. She talks about eating real to heal. She has a success string of people's successes where she has taught them how to eat for the benefit of their body in order to reverse a chronic health condition. I will let you tell the story. I've said this to everybody I've come in contact with. She's one of life's good people. You talk to her, you have this conversation. She's real. She's a human being at their very best, and she exudes what we do at Collaboration Global. So I'm really excited to hand over. I'm going to stop my share now. Nicolette, over to you, my darling.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. It is very early for me here I'm in British Columbia, Canada. I've had kids that were sick all weekend, and so I have not slept. And then this morning I was like, ah. So I apologize profusely for being late, but I'm really glad to be here with you now. And today I'm going to be talking to you about, often I come blasting in when I do these talks, and I'm on lots of podcasts. We have lots of guests on our show as well. It's the Eat Real to Heal podcast. I encourage you to all listen to it. And often the very first question that I get asked on a show or get asked by a client is, what is real food? And it's interesting because when I was in Africa, visiting my grandmother, I'm from a tiny, tiny little village in Africa. If you were to travel there with me, you would be you'd most likely, I'm looking at the diversity of faces here, you'd most likely be the only white person, minus my dad, who anybody in my village has ever seen. There's no running water, there's no electricity. It's been that way for thousands of years. And that's where my mom's side of the family is from. And so when I gave my grandmother a t-shirt when I went to go visit her, it said "Eat Real to Heal," and she needed my mom to translate and explain what that meant. And so my mom said, well, in Canada, where we're from, or in the UK, or in the United States, or any Western or developed world, or even in the cities in Africa, 400 or 500 kilometers outside of these villages, you could buy food and you put it in a box or a bag or a package, and then you stick it on the shelf. And then that food is still there, the same loaf of bread, the same, box of crackers, or the same soup or stew is there on the shelf weeks later. And my grandmother was so shocked. She said, that's not possible. You cannot put food, make it, put it on a shelf and have it be there weeks later. Because that was a concept she just was so foreign to her. And it really hit home the amount of knowledge that she had. But, my grandmother was 92 at the time. All the people in my village, all the huge age range from babies all the way up to people, close to 100, but no chronic diseases. Diabetes is unheard of. Heart disease, people don't have hypertension, and they don't suffer from anxiety and depression and the whole host of these chronic health conditions that we have. If they have cancer, they treat it naturally. And, my aunt had her foot amputated, but it was all done within the village. And she was 96 years old, and she had cancer as a young kid. It's a very different way of approaching medicine, health, wellness, food. And eating real to heal is so foreign to most people in a developed country. And so I want to talk about real food, and I want to talk about what reversing a chronic disease looks like, because 60% of the population in most developed countries are dealing with at least one chronic disease, but if not, it's usually more, because the minute you get put on one prescription medication, you're most likely going to be put on a second and a third, and then a second illness will pop up, and a third illness will pop up, and a fourth illness. By the time you're, if you're lucky to make it to 65 or 70, you're on a whole host of all of these pills beside your bedside table, or, in your kitchen, beside the tap. So you always have water, able to take them, and you're always managing all of these different medications. And we are currently in it is an epidemic according to the CDC, and most health authorities in Western countries, that we are in an epidemic of these chronic diseases. So that's another thing that I want to touch on, because I know when I say that to many people say, oh, come on, Nikki, stop exaggerating. But I get hired by governments. For example, I was hired by the CDC, the Center for Chronic Disease Control, and the Ministry of Health in China, to go to China to train 600 of their physicians, and then so they can basically get out of hospital and turn it into an Eat Real to Heal center. And now they have a center in another state in China for 150 in Qingbao, China, for which houses 150 people at a time who can come learn how to eat real to heal. I've done this in the States. I've done this in many, many parts of the world. And again, I'm always so shocked by the fact that these are just concepts that are not at the forefront of people's dining room tables and breakfast tables. The fact that we are living in this state now, and it's a very easy to reverse state that we're in. Truly easy to reverse. And that'll be one of the questions that I have for you when you go to the breakout room. So let's talk more about what eating real food is and why we want to do that. So we want to do it for many, many reasons. Okay, there's the number one reason why I do it is because I have a lot of good work to do in this world, and I don't need to have a chronic disease kicking my butt and preventing me from doing that good work. Okay, whether it's a mental health condition, a physical health condition, I don't need to be spending and wasting my time in doctors' offices, stressing over these chronic conditions, because they produce a lot of stress, and they contribute to what a concept called presenteeism in the workforce as well. So many of you are running businesses, you have employees, you are, trying to do your good work in the world. Meanwhile, your employees are suffering from presenteeism. And this is a term which is a bit confusing, but what it means is your employees come to work, or they show up, in their home office, and they're not present at all, in fact, because they're so stressed because of their chronic health conditions. They suffer from brain fog, they're missing work because of doctor's appointments, they have to go and manage their medications, then their side effects from those medications. Their family members are also sick as well because they're living the exact same lifestyle, so they're suffering from the same conditions. And so then therefore, not only is your employee managing their own health, and especially if they are a woman, they're managing their children's health as well, and their husband's health, their partner's health, their, their neighbor's health, if they're not putting that oxygen mask on themselves as well. And so we're losing all of this incredible productivity, and productivity in the good sense of the term, of the word, being able to do your good work in the world, being of service, pouring your gifts into your community so that other people can benefit from those beautiful things that you do. So we have a workforce that's suffering from presenteeism as a result of all these chronic diseases that are plaguing our society. And so when I start working with people or corporations, and I go in and I handhold all of the employees so that we can reverse their chronic diseases, it's amazing. People have never held a potato in their hand. They've held a heck of a lot of French fries or tater tots or frozen potato wedges out of the fridge, but they actually haven't held a potato. And for some of you, you're like, what? I love cooking. I'm cooking all the time in the kitchen. I'm like, great. That's amazing. Are you buying the potatoes that still have the dirt on them? Are you even eating potatoes, or have you been duped by the nutrition fads that are going around saying, don't eat potatoes, they're high on the glycemic index? Are you confused when you're eating food that you don't even enjoy it because you can't tell if you're supposed to be juicing a liter of celery juice, or if it's okay to eat celery even? Is it okay to eat eggs today or not tomorrow? There's just so much confusion. And if you're buying the potatoes that still have the dirt, are you using cleaning products to get rid of the dirt because you're so scared of dirt? Okay. So then we have those kinds of problems. And then you take the potato, it has the dirt on it, you give it a little wash, you keep the skin on, and then you're frying your potatoes in oil. Okay. Which is causing lesions in your arteries. And then you consume it, and then you put all of these sauces that are just full of all of these refined products. You put that on your potato. You're eating loads of dairy that's, been produced in farms that are actually contributing to your chronic disease. But people say, oh, you're supposed to have dairy. There's lots of calcium in there. So you're even more confused now. And you've only just started with the potato. I haven't talked about the other 350,000 other amazing, cancer fighting foods that are on the planet that you may or may not even know about. So there's real food. Okay. So what I do is I teach my clients how to just eat real food. That means you're only shopping in one area of the grocery store. You're not shopping in all the other areas that have labels on there. If the food has a label, you're not going to be shopping there. Okay. And purchasing those products. So let's talk about what reversing a chronic degenerative disease actually means. And what is a disease? So if you have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, high, LDL, low HDL, cholesterol markers, if you are waking up every morning with brain fog, if you are have pain in your joints, so rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis, osteoporosis, if you have, any kind of condition that is preventing you from living your life to the fullest. It could be multiple sclerosis. It could be, the list of chronic diseases is long. Okay. And even if you have a genetic condition, this talk applies to you. Okay. So you may think, oh, well, my mom had diabetes. My grandmother had diabetes. My, whole family's dad's side of the family had cholesterol issues and high blood pressure and arthritis. So you're going to think to yourself that it is genetic. And maybe even your doctor has told you that it's genetic. I'm here to tell you that it's most likely not, because out of every single disease you can think of on the planet, including all cancers, 97% of them are lifestyle diseases. And they're caused by the choices you are making every single day. Now, I just finished my PhD, which showed that, intergenerational trauma and stress is also contributing to that. But that's just a tiny fraction, because 97% of the reason why we have the chronic disease is diet related. The other 3%, it's really because of those other factors, like you smoke, you drink too much, you don't exercise, you don't sleep very well, you have stress and you have intergenerational trauma. But 97% of the reason why we have these diseases is diet related. And the reason why I know that to be true, I'm not just looking at the statistics, is because you can give me somebody with multiple sclerosis and diabetes and heart disease and even type 1 diabetes. And in as little as 3 months, we can eliminate all those symptoms and have the people off all of their medications. Okay, that means no more prescription medications. And, you're in the UK, you have a different medical system that that a lot of my clients in the United States have. But a lot of my clients in the States, some of their medications are anywhere from $8,000 a month to $33,000 a month to $100,000 a month. And they're lucky if they can get it covered. And if they can't get it covered, they're just not taking those medications and they're accepting the consequence of that. Or they're going after aftermarket drugs to try and get the pills on a penny a dollar. So reversing a chronic disease means that you have unlimited energy, that your brain is functioning optimally, that you are sleeping like a baby. But the babies that do sleep, which I know those are rare, so I hate that term, but you can go to bed at 10:30 at night and then have a solid sleep, like I did last night, and then overslept, and then have a solid sleep, and then wake up at at a good time in the morning, and then you have energy. You wake up and you're like, wow, I love this day. I want to approach this day. I feel so good about this day. I have so much energy. And you're able to go about your day, no brain fog, not needing uppers and downers to manage your day. So when I say uppers and downers, I'm saying coffee and wine, coffee and wine. Some of you might, be familiar with that lifestyle, trying to manage, just trying to stay awake, but then also being able to go to sleep at night. It means that you're spending virtually no time at the doctor's office throughout any given year or any given decade, other than to get your blood work checked, just to make sure you're well within the certain ranges for certain nutrients like B12 and D3 and so on. But for the most part, you don't ever have to visit the doctor. If you get a cold, you get over the cold within a few days, and it doesn't wipe you out and leave you with a host of other symptoms that come with having an illness. So reversing a chronic disease means you actually just get to live your life to the fullest. Okay. Not in pain. Your joints don't ache. You could take up running at 70 years old, like I had one client do, or at 60 years old. I had a client who had suffered her whole life with depression and PCOS, endometriosis, and anxiety. And she did our program and went on to complete a half marathon within, it was not even 12 weeks of starting our program. And she was not a runner before that. But that's what it means to reverse a chronic disease. You have that unlimited energy that you just never had before. And so we talked about real food. So what is real food? We talked about that. And one of the questions I will have for all of you is, do you eat real food? Okay, do you eat real food? And most people put up their hand and they're like, yeah, I'm really healthy. I'm really healthy. And when I get into their kitchens, what I find is they're not really healthy. They're healthy according to what the food marketers say. You buy a box of, this or a box of that, and it says it's organic and whole foods. But when you actually get in there, it's not made of any whole foods. That's just a marketing term. So, and then of course, what I talked about earlier, how do you prepare your foods in the house? And what we know from the statistics, 3 out of 10 and North Americans, and this applies, and I think it's maybe like 2.7 out of 10 people in the UK, because I know many of you are from there, they don't get enough fruits and vegetables and whole foods in their diet on any given day. So 30% of your diet might be whole foods, and then the 70% is processed, refined, packaged. But in that 30% of the foods that you are eating that contain all of the disease-fighting ingredients, many people are sabotaging those real foods by preparing them in very unhealthy ways as well. Because anybody can take a potato and chop it up and deep fry it and call that, I eat healthy because I ate a potato. So it's time to really, really look honestly at your own health. And anytime you find yourself saying, oh, I eat really healthy, it's to do a real true check on that, to be very, very honest with yourself on that, so that you can have unlimited energy, be free of your chronic illnesses, and be out there doing incredible work in the world. Okay, so we've talked about real food, reversing chronic diseases, and then what do you do next with this information? Okay. So that is the question that I want to pose to everybody, is when you hear that you can reverse a chronic disease, when you hear that real food maybe is not the equivalent to the healthy lifestyle that you think you may have been living, what do you do? How do you learn? How do you unlearn? Okay, because that is one of the very first steps, is to unlearn everything that you have come to learn about nutrition and wellness and health. And it's to really have a good look at it straight on. Okay. And I love Byron Katie's work, Loving What Is, because she has a great formula for checking in anytime you make a statement. Like, for example, oh, I have high blood pressure because it's genetic, it runs in my family. Is that true? That's one of the very first questions that Byron Katie would ask. Is that true? Second question, how do you know that to be true? How can you prove that that is true. And I have helped so many people prove that that is not true. Their conditions that they have today are not related genetically whatsoever to their family. The only thing that gets handed down through the generations is unhealthy lifestyles, unhealthy stress management tools, unhealthy communication with the self, okay? Unhealthy ideas on personal growth and learning and knowledge acquisition, right? So a lot of families, this is unfortunately pulled from the statistics, most people will listen to what their friends and family have to say about nutrition, but not actually listen to what somebody who's certified in nutrition has to say. And you know this to be true as well. And so we'll listen to our family members who've never taken a biochemistry course, never taken a chemistry or biology course, or never really even studied nutrition. They've read a lot of blogs. They've done a lot of fad diets, a lot of fad programs, and they'll be the ones like, oh my gosh, you should totally do the master cleanse. You drink lemon juice and maple syrup and you drink that all day long, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, everybody's doing the master cleanse. Don't do it. Okay, everybody then is doing keto. Oh my gosh, I did keto and I lost so much weight, they say. And so then you're so excited to lose weight, so you go and do keto. But what you don't know is that every single day you're clogging your arteries. But you've never looked at a study, or they've never looked at a study. Meanwhile, they're perpetuating this information, and the studies most long-term studies have to be cut short and stopped because keto diets create so much damage to your internal organs and arteries that it produces clinical depression, clogged arteries, atherosclerosis, and a whole host of other chronic diseases, neuropathy, diabetes, and so on and so on. Okay. So it's time to look really honestly at your lifestyle, time to look really honestly about the food that's in your kitchen, the food that you're putting into your mouth, your relationship also to food. Some people just think of food as fuel. I love thinking of food as fuel because that is what it is, but it's also, for a lot of people, it's comfort. It's a friend. It's creativity. Right? Some people need to be so creative in the kitchen that they don't think about their health. They just want to produce the next meal that is Instagram worthy, okay? Or that people will be addicted to and keep coming back to their restaurant over and over and over again for it. But it doesn't serve a purpose beyond that. It's not considered health promoting food. It's just full of so many refined ingredients. Most of the times it's not even made of real food, but it looks beautiful on a restaurant's website. So as we move forward from a conversation like this, I know that it can be scary because all of a sudden you go to your fridge and you grab an ingredient and you're like, but I thought this was healthy, or how am I supposed to prepare this? And there's almost a paralysis that happens. It's a fear. And that's when people start emailing me and they're like, but is this healthy for me? And is this healthy for me? And is this healthy? And I want everybody to take a pause, because there is the unlearning that needs to happen, then a relearning, and it's not going to happen overnight. Okay, so I'm not going to leave you hanging here and, fending for yourself out in the wild in your kitchen, lost and confused and afraid. I'm not going to do that. So I definitely want to leave some resources for you. But and I'll do that at the end, and in the Q&A, you can ask me as many questions as you want as well. But what I do want to leave you with is the fact that you, and only you, have the power to reverse your chronic disease. It's you and only you. There's no knight in shining armor. There is no one pill, one hit wonder that's going to come along and eradicate your chronic disease. There never has been, and there never will be. And the reason I know that is because if you think there's a cure for your diabetes and high blood pressure and MS and Alzheimer's and dementia, I mean, all of the leading researchers around the world, like the Spearheads team who have the Alzheimer's solution, they're two neuroscientists leading neuroscientists in the world that claimed that they were going to find the cure for cancer. And then in the end, they said there will, or not for cancer, for Alzheimer's and dementia, and they're the ones who announced quite a few years ago, they said there will never be a cure for it. The only cure is your kitchen. The only cure is your farmer's market. The only cure is your local farmer who produces the foods in the most healthiest, nutrient-dense way. The only cure is a lifestyle where you eat basically boatloads, okay, 10 out of 10 fistfuls a day of whole foods, organic foods, not sprayed with toxins and pesticides. So as these doctors are rising up now, because they've seen it over and over again, they're like, you know what, there will never be a drug that'll just get rid of that. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, you know, you have a condition where you take it and now you don't have high blood pressure, or, you know, your diabetes, blood glucose levels are well within the normal range. But if you were to stop taking that medication, would then all your symptoms come back? So it is not a cure for your chronic condition. If you weren't taking the anti-anxiety meds or the antidepressants, would your depression be there? Would your anxiety be there? Would your PCOS or endometriosis or MS be there? So this is why we know there is no cure. There never has been a cure, but it's there to give you some comfort in life, to help take away the pain, help take away some of the symptoms, but that doesn't mean you're healed. And every day that you continue to take one of those medications, which is good, I'm all for medications, especially while you're unlearning and learning what to do to be able to create the conditions in your body where you no longer are dependent on those. So I love medications, and people are always so shocked to hear that when I hear that I say that. And of course, we need those gap stops while we're learning what to do, but we can't become dependent on them. Or you can, but it's going to come with a lot of those consequences. For example, presenteeism in the workforce, a lot of expenditure, you know, on your health, not from a positive perspective, but from the loss of time, the loss of money, the loss of creativity, the loss of so many different things that we have as we're managing these chronic conditions. Sometimes it's the loss of, you know, quality time with family as well. Okay, so the question that I have for you as we move into the breakout room, I don't know how many more minutes I have or if I'm over time, Jill.
0.
Okay, 0. Okay, good. So
Go for it. Go for the question. Thank you.
Yeah, into the Q&A. What do you do with this information now? What do you do with this information now? Do you say, oh my gosh, that lady's out to lunch, she's on crack, doesn't know what she's talking? And some of you will do that, and that is okay. Some of you will go into denial. Some of you will want to take action immediately. Some of you will go into paralysis mode. Some of you will, but what are you going to do with the information? What are 3 things that you can do with this information that I've shared with you today? And it could be anything.
I like that. I like, what 3 things can you do? It makes people proactive. And even if the 3 things are like, I'm going to ignore this conversation and I'm just going to carry on popping my pills, you're making a decision, you're making a choice.
Yes.
Hopefully it's an empowered choice to get better health and take some action. Thank you, Nicolette. I mean, that was so much information and so many shocks along the way, even though we've had conversations around this before. Was it 97% of why we have diseases is what we eat? 97%. But it makes sense. It does. It totally makes sense. And just that question about, do you eat real food? And when you said, if it has a label on it, you shouldn't be eating it. You don't want it. And that's so simple. That's a really good one. So I'm going to pass over to Louise, who's going to put us all into breakout rooms.